Matt, we have both seen Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, have we not?
Yes.
We saw it separately.
Yes. Your experience is probably better than mine.
Your mileage may... Why? Why would you say that?
Because the fire alarm went off right before our movie started.
Oh, was it like a drill or was it a real alarm?
Someone burned something in the concession area, and I'm talking like we were 5 minutes away from the movie starting. Or no, I think it was just about to start. And then fire alarm went off. We went inside, and that movie theater, I feel bad for everyone who worked that night. There were so many angry people, and I just...
You just hid from all the rage?
I feel bad for people that just get yelled at, especially if it's something that like they can't control. Yeah. It's like they have to follow fire codes, and what they said was you don't have to leave the building because it was freezing outside, and said you could stay in, but you cannot go into any theaters until we have the fire marshal look and say it's okay for people to
give
go
the
back
all
in.
Clear.
And then they said this was something that my mom was really angry about. She said, they said that any movie that started after 5, they will be restarting. Anything that started before 5, they will not be restarting. And our showtime was at 4:50.
So what exactly happened?
We never found out what actually caused it. It wasn't anything major.
No. I mean your movie.
Oh, we didn't see it because my mom... By the time that they had said that we could go back in, it had been like an hour. So we would have gone in there while the movie... And the movies were still going. So if we had gone back in, we would have been like a little less than halfway through the movie. And they weren't going to restart it. So they said that anyone who doesn't want to...
go in and see a movie that's halfway over?
They would... they were willing to give you like other tickets for other showings, or if you wanted to stay there and wait for the next showing, you'd go in. And this was a really nice theater. Like this was in it was in Green Hills, and it was one of those theaters where like they had like recliner chairs, and it'd been the first time I'd ever been to one of those theaters. I thought the seats were cool, but that was one of the worst movie experiences I've ever had in my life. But So
you guys just watched like a later showtime?
Yeah, we went in, we got vouchers for another movie time. That poor manager. She looked like she was going to cry. Just so many people going in there just angry and furious, and that I don't understand why people get that worked up over something. It's like you can just see the next showing.
Yeah.
They're trying to work with you. They have to follow certain things, and they can only do certain things. It's not their fault. It's a company telling them what they have to do. So it's not. Yeah, don't throw.
Be reasonable.
Yeah, don't throw your Don't throw your anger at people. It's the higher ups that are making them do that. They have no control, even if they're,
the people that are there.
The manager, yeah.
Wow.
They have certain rules like this, and it. After that, of course, we watched it. So yeah, that was fun.
Well, aside from your experience, what did you think of Star Wars?
I found it entertaining. I did not think it was as bad as people.
Matt from Level 1 Sword Podcast raves. I found it entertaining.
I did. I found it entertaining. People said that it was one of the best Star Wars films they'd ever seen, or it was like the best in what will probably be either a trilogy or 4-part. I don't know. There were also other people that said it was one of the worst Star Wars movies they'd ever seen, and they hated it. And I think there was actually a petition going around to make it to where that movie wasn't canon.
Oh my goodness.
Which I found completely ridiculous.
Wow.
It's okay if you don't like
Mass Effect 3 all over again.
Yeah. It's alright if you don't like it. It wasn't bad enough to the point to where it doesn't need to be considered, with the rest of the story. Like, there was...
I mean, we're getting to the point where movies are going to need trigger warnings.
Yes. It's like, warning, if you had opinions about how this movie was going to go, you're not going to like it.
Well, and I think the line that Luke has in the movie had a lot to do with not just with Rey's character, but with the movie. This is not going to go the way you plan it.
Yes.
I might have changed that line, but that's the basis of what he says. And that's like what the movie is like. It's not going to go the way you think it is.
No. It's just definitely not. There were parts in the movie I really liked. There were parts in the movie I thought were stupid. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it like some people. A friend of mine told me that he wants to go see it again because the first time he saw it, there were so many times where he was just like, wait, what just happened? Mm-hmm. And he was too busy trying to think about like what had just happened that he wasn't really paying attention to what was going on at the time. So he feels like that if he goes in, doesn't care about all those like weird like what parts, and just focuses on what they're saying and what they're trying to, or what they're meaning, he'll have a better understanding of the film. And I've talked about joining him for that because I feel the same way after coming out of that first showing. But it's not a bad movie.
And by the way, I do want to say this now. This is not a spoiler-free review. The movie's been out for
3.5 weeks.
At this point, almost a month.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Turn back now if you don't want to hear any spoilers, because we're going to be discussing very key elements of the plot and characters and the fates of certain characters.
Yes.
So, okay, so specifically, since you sound like you're kind of in the middle, let me hear what you really liked about the movie, and then you can do what you didn't like.
Okay. I liked Luke Skywalker. There were a lot of people who've talked to me and say that this is the worst they've ever seen Luke Skywalker. They did not portray Luke Skywalker the way that they should have. This isn't how he would act. They said they felt like it was just a completely different person other than Luke Skywalker, and I'm just sitting there like, what are you talking about? I think they did him pretty well. I think what people are complaining about is they were expecting Luke to be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Were they expecting him to, in his words, like, what, did you think I was going to show up with a laser sword and just take on the First Order all by myself?
Yes. Like, as far as the books go and extended lore of Star Wars, Luke's really cool. Like, he's done some really cool stuff. And he's a really powerful Jedi.
Yeah. But this is not that.
This is not that. This is... It's more of a I don't know if I'd say traumatized, but troubled. It's a troubled Luke that just really wants nothing to do with something that he feels like he kind of caused, which he did.
Right.
He'd prefer to not have to do anything with the Force anymore. He feels like that he either didn't do what he was supposed to do, or he failed the Force or the Jedi Order with what he's done. So he's kind of blocked it off, and he just wants to... He said that he's just there to die. He's there...
Yeah, he came to the island to die.
Which, seeing what happened between him and Kylo Ren, I could see that. With the large amount of collateral damage that caused from his mistake, I could see someone even like Luke kind of turning to that.
And I agree with you. I completely... Like, Mark Hamill was warning a lot of people, like, I don't like this version of Luke. I very much disagree with this version of Luke, and there's a lot of people that agree with him. I don't. I like this version of Luke. I think the reasons that they gave him for... I mean, he I mean, think about it. He had Han and Leia's son as one of his pupils, and arguably due to a very small mistake on his part, he created a monster. I mean, and I loved how they showed that scene with him and Kylo Ren in the past, and how the first time you see it, it's completely from Luke's point of view. The next time you see it, it's completely from Kylo Ren's point of view, but you learn something very significant at that point. And then the third time you see it how it actually happened and how it actually played out. And I'm like, that completely makes sense.
Yeah.
All of that. And I loved how the audience got to take a journey with Rey to find out the truth of what happened between Luke and Kylo Ren.
Right.
Or as he was called at that point, Ben. Ben Solo.
He's always been so. I saw that meme, and I fell in love with it. I love it.
So what else? What else did you like?
I kind of liked Rey's journey of kind of discovering what the Force is, or just as I guess a better way of saying is I liked her story more than what else was going on, because it was the most put together, coherent storyline in that whole movie that wasn't garbage. And I'll get to that when we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But just like she gets there, and Luke turns around, and she like hands him the lightsaber. He looks at it.
His
he grabs it.
By the way, his lightsaber that was Anakin's. So this is like Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, the lightsaber of Star Wars, basically.
And he holds it, and he looks at her, and he just throws it over his head, and he just walks away like that.
That made me laugh out loud in the theater.
Yeah, it was hilarious. Another complaint that I've heard people say is that they felt like it was too much of a comedy and not more of an adventure series.
Oh, where like the humor didn't work. I liked the humor in the movie.
I understand where people are coming from there, because there were a few parts where I feel like there was humor, and I was like, why? This kind of feels like a serious situation. What? That felt a little out of place, but there were other parts where it was like, that was genuinely hilarious. And it's not like they haven't had humor in Star Wars films before. I think that's a big problem that I've had with people's criticism about it, is that they feel like there haven't been any kind of funny moments in Star Wars movies.
See, I would have to get a specific example of the humor. Like specifically, which part did you feel like didn't work? Like, I feel like maybe some people might feel that way when he's like teaching Rey about the Force, and he tells her to like,
oh no, I think that was
stretch
hilarious.
out, and he takes like the
little leaf.
leaf.
Like, are you feeling? It's like, yes,
you
I feel
feel
it. The Force is strong with you. Slaps her on the head, like, you idiot.
That's not the Force.
Don't reach out with your. I thought that was pretty funny. No, just.
Was it the milk scene? Because I don't feel like that was so much
That
funny.
wasn't humor. That was more like
a reference to, okay, they had blue milk in episode 4. This is apparently where that milk comes from.
I didn't laugh from that scene. I laughed at how many people said "ugh" in the theater.
I was just told about, there's a scene with colored milk. Just be ready for it. And I was like, oh, that's what people were talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
That's, he's a creepy old hermit. Definitely.
I think the beginning of it, the whole thing between the general and Poe.
What, with Leia and Poe?
No, the
her replacement, or
no, the like the very first thing. Poe is going towards the Star Destroyers, and he's trying to talk to the guy who's in charge.
Yeah.
I felt like initially it was funny. I feel like they went on too long. And I understand that it was him, like, just
Buying
creating
time.
yeah, it was him buying time so that he could
Oh my goodness.
charge something. I was like, I understand that. But I feel like that went on a little too long. That's about all I could think of, because really I can only think of the parts that I really liked about the movie. I try not to think about the parts that I didn't like. The parts that I really didn't like, I have very few memories. I'd have to see it again, but there weren't very many scenes where humor I felt like was a little weird to have at, but I felt like most of the humor in the movie was okay. It was okay.
Right. So, what did you dislike about it?
Oh boy. Poe's character in general. I'm not really a fan of his.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He kind of feels like the Han replacement. He's a trigger happy hotshot who kind of just wants people to, like, only look at his achievements. He doesn't really want to focus on the negative, even though it clearly shows him, like, understanding his negatives, but he just kind of chooses to look past them, like the whole first part of the movie, or not the whole the first part, but like the first fight scene where they want to take out he wants to take out a dreadnought,
right?
And everything is going wrong with that whole fight, other than him. Just their bombers are being destroyed. Just very, I'd say, for what success there was, for how many people were left of the resistance, the good did not outweigh the bad.
Okay.
And he kind of came back and he was just kind of like, yay, we did it, we got a dreadnought. And Leia was like, you're
demoted.
Yeah. And he's like, why? You killed, like, almost every ship that went out there for a mission that you took out a dreadnought, but we lost a huge portion of our fighters. And he kind of didn't really understand why he was demoted, or he just didn't like it. And I was like, but when he was watching it all go down, he looked sad. And then he comes back and he's just like, hey, we did it, yay! And he didn't, I don't know. And then, that's another thing. For what he did, he just kind of got a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, but I mean, well, okay, so with that, I would say you're right. They put him in a starting point for the movie where, you know, he kind of is just like a hotshot, and he's not concerned with, you know, the red shirts of the rebellion.
Yeah.
But I think that was the whole thing. Like there was a lot of, this was a learning experience for several characters. Like their arcs were all about them learning something and learning that, hey, you're not a kid in a, you know, playing in your backyard anymore. Like, you know, this is war. This is something you have to take seriously and understand that there are real risks here, and that, you know, every decision you make could adversely affect someone's life up to ending it. And I think that was a lesson that Poe had to learn. But I think the whole slap on the wrist was they were trying to escape for their lives, so there really wasn't time to do like a court-martial for him, or you know, do something more than just, you're demoted, but we still need you.
And I can kind of understand that, but Leia wasn't really doing anything. And she's their leader. And that's definitely something that, even in the situation they were in, should have been met with more strict punishment than you're going down. It's basically saying you're at level 40, go back to 39. It's like, oh, it's like, barely done anything. And then she said that he's not allowed to go out anymore. And then a few more enemy ships come out, and he just says, permission to go out there and destroy stuff. or can I go out there, be stupid, and blow stuff up? And she's like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
It's like,
After she told him
just
like,
got on to him about doing that,
right?
And go ahead.
But okay, at that point, it's like, well, sometimes that is needed.
But he didn't tell her what he was doing.
Well, but she knew what he needed to do. Like, it was obvious because like they were under attack, and
I guess. But
I don't know. It didn't bug me.
He did at the end of the movie. It did seem like he finally got a hold of like what it means to
be a leader,
not be stupid.
Right.
You need to look at something not hot-headed, like a fighter pilot. You need to look at it and see everything from every direction before you make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I guess.
Well,
that first part was just for me.
What else did you not like?
Speaking of bombers, I didn't catch this. Huh?
Rose's sister?
No, I actually didn't care about that.
Okay.
I didn't care about her either, really. She's kind of just like a side character they threw in because Rey was doing her own thing and Poe was in trouble. He was sitting in the corner. I didn't notice this at first, and this can probably be taken as like a big nitpick and probably something that, people saying why it's not a good movie. I haven't heard anyone other than maybe 2 people say this. They dropped bombs on Star Destroyers in space.
You do understand that was a big dreadnought. You know what big things have?
You know what space doesn't have?
What?
Gravity.
Do you know that that's exactly what a big item or big object does have?
Yeah.
Gravity. So it makes sense that the bombs would actually fall onto it. Not at that speed, but that would actually probably work. Because when you have... The reason why we can't, like, a bit sciencey, but the reason why we can't feel gravity here, like, between 2 objects, like I can't feel the gravitational pull of this cup, is because the gravity of Earth is interfering with that. So when you're in no gravity, objects are attracted to each other much more than they are on, like, a planet.
But I feel like by the time the bombs would have gotten to the spot where the Star Destroyer was, the Star Destroyer would have been gone. Or it would have just... The Star Destroyer's bridge would have hit the bombs before it had even, like, touched the surface of it. And that's more of a nitpick, it's a science fiction movie.
Right.
With lightsabers and an all-powerful force that, is flowing through everyone. So to talk about the gravity of bombs falling on a ship, I can see that being a little nitpicky. It's just something that I noticed and a few other friends noticed, and I thought, I was like, that's a good point. They shouldn't have done that. Not like they shouldn't have done that scene.
But they've had bombs in Star Wars movies. Bombers in space. I mean, when the Millennium Falcon was taking cover in the cave, it wasn't really a cave. In Empire Strikes Back, they had bombers bombing the surface of the asteroid. Same principle.
Yeah.
The asteroid's not a planet, but it is still a large object, which can have its own gravity.
Right. And there are some asteroids that are big enough to essentially be like a moon. Yeah. Or a dwarf planet. I think a moon is smaller than a dwarf planet, but either there is some gravity there. So I can understand that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that's not really something that I disliked about the movie. It was just a thing I was like, wait, no? Physics. But
I feel like there's something that you really didn't like about the movie.
I didn't like... there's a few things. One of the really big ones is Princess Leia living. What? That whole scene was one of the dumbest things I think I've seen.
I could see why you and several others think that it was stupid that she was able to do that.
Not that she was able to do it, just the way they did it just looked so dumb and goofy, and it hurt my brain to watch something like that happen. It also doesn't really make sense that they kept her alive.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, like,
the one character that, and all due respect to Carrie Fisher, she was a great person, really good actor. I'm not trying to be mean. That would have been the easiest character to kill off in Star Wars ever.
Right. So let's review here. You kill off Han. Harrison Ford's still alive. You don't kill off Leia, but Carrie Fisher is now no longer with us, and apparently, from what I've read, she did have a large planned role for Episode 9, which they will now have to work around.
Right.
And spoiler alert, you kill off Luke Skywalker when Mark Hamill is also still alive. So basically, all of the original three characters are basically dead for all intents and purposes.
Either in real life or in the movies, yes.
Right.
And it doesn't, as far as that goes, that's the part that I didn't like about it, was they kept her going when they clearly, they could have cut her out.
They could have. I don't think it looked ridiculous. I kind of thought it was a neat way to reveal, like, well, first of all, I thought she was dead. Like, it was a good way of being like, oh, Leia knows how to use the Force, and she uses the Force in a way that you've never seen it be used. And
that's another thing, is like, she was in space for a long time before they addressed that.
But you can survive in a vacuum. You can actually survive in space for not just seconds, but like minutes, they think now.
Okay, because
I knew painful, be very painful.
But... Oh, it's incredibly painful. Especially when you're sucked out like that.
Right.
The longest I've known someone could survive in the vacuum of space would be 40 seconds. And she definitely seemed like she was out there longer than 40 seconds. And it looked like she was even starting to crystallize,
yeah.
Which is like... And it could have been a Force thing that kept her living for that long.
Right. There's been, from the extended universe, like, Force healing and using the Force to, like, just do all these different things.
And that's something that I've heard a bunch of other people complain about, is they feel like they used the Force in this movie in ways that it shouldn't have been, or it was never meant to be in, when the truth is they just haven't explained the Force that well. At this point, we've only seen the Force be used in combat ways, and very limited combat ways.
Yeah, I mean, you see the Force used in new ways, but it's like, you really want to see the full potential of the Force, play either one of the Force Unleashed games.
Or just look up,
like, talk about abusing the Force.
Yeah, especially Unleashed 2. Yeah. That's dumb.
Someone also, or my brother-in-law told me, he said that, remember that in Episode 4, A New Hope, Vader says the ability to blow up a planet is insignificant compared to the power of the Force. I don't think he was blowing it out of proportion. I think the Force is a big deal.
There are incredibly powerful Force beings that people don't know about because they don't care to look into the lore of Star Wars. All they care about is the movies, and there may be some people who read the books. There is so much more that the Force can do that we've seen in the movies before, and that's what people were complaining about. They were saying that
the Force has been used to transfer, like, one person's soul from one body to a new body. I mean, it's...
You can literally project yourself from the dead.
Right. Yeah. Well, did anyone complain about that in Empire Strikes Back when you see Obi-Wan walking around as a Force ghost?
People thought it was cool that they had Obi-Wan and Anakin and Yoda all at the end. No one questioned it. They were like, this is okay. It's the Force.
Yeah.
Whatever. But Carrie Fisher pulling herself to the ship that's where we cross the line, is being able to pull yourself towards something. Right. If you can pull things to yourself, obviously, you shouldn't be able to pull yourself towards something. That's not what I have a problem with. I have the problem with her...
That she actually survived, even though the actress
she should have died.
Is
or if
gone.
She had pulled herself there, she should have kind of pulled like a I guess, an Odin and just like say something and then died.
Or done something, kind of like what Luke did. Maybe have her go out in a really cool fashion. I don't even call it that, because it's like he technically wasn't even there.
But she could have.
She could have done that and overexerted herself and succumbed. I mean, that would have. And honestly, like, if they're going to CG her in episode 9, which they're talking about doing, be a whole lot easier to do if she's a Force ghost. Maybe they're thinking, well, that would be...
Of course, then we get CGI Carrie Fisher again.
Right. So I've heard that they're going to use footage from that they shot for episode 8 that they didn't use, but now they're going to use for 9. I don't know how they've really ridden themselves into a corner by going this route with Han, Luke, and Leia.
I don't know if they should have killed Luke off. I don't think that would have changed how the movie is, being good or bad.
Apparently, Mark Hamill may not have even known about it until he saw it in the theater. Because I've seen videos of him at the red carpet event, and he's like so excited before the movie, like he's literally hopping up and down talking to a reporter, and then comes out of the theater and the director is being interviewed right next to him. The look on his face is he's in shock and he wants to kill somebody. The expression on his face is like he's just breathing in deeply. His eyes are kind of like not sure where to look. Looks like he's ready to kill someone or have a heart attack. Maybe both. I don't know.
It should definitely be something you tell one of your main actors that, hey, you're probably going to die in this movie. Or you're definitely going to die at the end of this movie. Especially someone as important as the person who plays Luke.
Yeah.
So I don't want to believe that they kind of blindsided him like that.
But it's definitely possible.
It could have.
And I've got a theory as to why they actually killed him off. As in 8, as opposed to like if they are gonna, I feel like if you were gonna kill him off, they'd wait until 9.
I am happy that they didn't kill him off like they did Obi-Wan. As soon as I saw it kind of going towards that route, I was like, don't do it.
Yeah, please don't pull an Obi-Wan here.
Like, you just don't do it, don't do it. And then they didn't, and I was like, oh, thank you.
But at the same time, he kind of did.
A little, but in his own way. It was different.
Yeah.
Ish.
Oh shoot, what was I gonna say?
Something about Mark Hamill?
Yeah, so I think the reason why they might have killed off Luke Skywalker early is Mark Hamill has been very vocal about his disapproval of the new movies. And I think since then, since he's been outspoken about it, like I used to think like, what are you gonna do? You gonna fire him and get someone else to play Luke Skywalker, or you could just kill off Luke Skywalker. That'll also solve your problem. But Luke's gonna show up in Episode 9 as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
So
Rey will have some kind of weird conflict,
right. And you're still not gonna stop. Probably Mark Hamill's gonna talk even more crap about the new Star Wars movies. So we are over 30 minutes, so let me actually get to my thoughts here. I like this movie the best out of the 3 Disney-owned movies. I liked it. I thought this was much, much better than Rogue One. And I thought that it was better than The Force Awakens. I'm actually interested in Kylo Ren as a character now. I love the whole symbolism of him in that first scene talking to Snoke, and how he still has the helmet on, and Snoke insults him and basically, admonishes him in front of, well, just the guards, I guess. But anyway, he makes a fool out of him and really chastises him, and he just destroys the helmet by bashing it into the sides of the elevator, which I'm glad we get to see at least one more temper tantrum from him. Like those are scary and funny at the same time. I don't know why, but it's kind of ridiculous that he has that issue. So, and then of course he never wears the helmet anymore.
Right, which is nice to see him become his own character instead of wanting to be a
Darth Vader wannabe.
And I liked him a bit more in this movie too than The Force Awakens. Because The Force Awakens, he acted like a little schoolboy, and I wanted to have him die.
And I love that whole thing where he's gonna fire on the ship that has Leia, and then he decides not to do it, but then like his wingmen do it for him. I was just like, oh my goodness, like that was done very well. So Kylo Ren was super interesting. Like him and Rey's story, like, and the way that they're intertwining them is being done really well. I had an expectation going in that, you know, he was going to offer Rey to join him or something to like train. I thought it was going to be like she wanted to be trained by Luke. Luke would refuse, so she would go to like Kylo Ren and actually accept, you know, his offer. But and I like that they did this, but at the same time, this is going to be probably my biggest gripe with the movie. I don't mind that they killed Snoke off. I don't mind that they killed Snoke off in the way that they did. However, who the heck is Snoke? Who is he? Like, obviously he... And I've been told, like, oh, well, you know, if he's been around for as long as he has, he may not even be necessarily a Sith or a Sith Lord, because in Episode 1, they said that there's always only 2 Sith at a time. There's a master and an apprentice, and that's it. You never have more than 2. So maybe he's not Sith, or maybe he was being trained. I don't know. I need to know who he was, because he was extremely strong in the Force. I mean, you want to talk about someone who like looked like he had complete control over the Force, and just, you know, taking a lightsaber and just like whacking Rey in the head with it when she tried to go get it. I mean, he was just toying with her the entire time, and I'm okay with him being killed off. I just need to know who he was. Hopefully in Episode 9 we get something like that. I don't like to be, you know, I hope they're not going to have it like in Episode 7, you have this very shadowy character who's kind of like the Emperor. Actually, he's pretty much exactly like the Emperor. And then you kill him off, and then you never say where he came from. Like, that's important. I heard one reviewer saying, "Oh, I don't even care about Snoke." I'm thinking, how do you not care about Snoke? He's really important to the story. Like, the Emperor... the thing is like the reason why you know, with the original trilogy, you didn't have to know that much about the Emperor is because you didn't have all the lore when Empire and Return of the Jedi came out. You just knew that this was Darth Vader's boss in the Empire. That's all you needed to know. And then we got his backstory in the prequel. But who's this guy? He comes from out of left field and is leading the First Order.
There's a bunch of fan theories on who he is. I can't remember the name exactly, but there's a theory that's going around that people are thinking is pretty spot on, that he was a Sith and now he's calling himself another name. They think that he was was it Darth Plagueis?
Who was Sidious's master?
Yeah. There's people who think that that's who he is, and there's I've heard some people have actually gotten like some decent enough information together that it seems pretty sure that he is, but the movie hasn't really like specified who he was.
Right. I don't want just fan theories.
Right.
I want confirmed, like, this is who Snoke is or was. And this is why he absolutely he hated, or definitely wanted to have Kylo Ren. Like, it was very important that he seduced him to the dark side. let's see. I liked Luke's character. Um, I you know what? I didn't have a problem. A lot of people complained of the whole thing with Finn and Rose, and how they go to the casino planet, and I liked how it and people were like, "Oh, that was completely useless." No, it wasn't. It showed you, yes, the plan that they had did not work out. Guess what? Plans don't always work out. Just because it's a Hollywood movie and it's a big budget movie doesn't mean that everything has to go the way that the main characters plan it to go. Things mess up. You trust a guy who, just as a mercenary, yeah, someone can buy him out. And the Empire has deeper pockets than the Rebellion. So that made 100% sense that that happened. And it also showed you that, like, the war is just something that's, like, manufactured. It kind of dove into, like, a conspiracy theory aspect of, like, you know, the rebels versus the Empire. Like, who's profiting it? Especially that these people were... I thought it was really cool that it was revealed that the same people that are selling the Empire weapons are selling the rebels weapons. So
because they're weapon manufacturers,
right? But that was done really well. I thought. So I didn't think that was a waste of time. 40 minutes of wasted screen time. I didn't think that at all.
Because they wouldn't have been able to get on the ship without some type of hacker. What I had a problem with is they found the guy that they were supposed to find. They get taken to jail because they parked a ship illegally. Mord crashed it. And then in the same cell that they were in, some
they just happen to find
weird dude who's just been sitting in a bed for who knows how long. And he's just saying, like, oh, I can get you if you want. And he has, like, some weird speech impediment. And they're just like, no, that's okay. We'll no. He's like, all right. And
then he just walks out.
He all of a sudden decides that that's the moment he'll leave. Like, he could have left at any moment at that time. First off, that there was an incredible hacker in that prison at all was just like, what? The same cell as them is what I don't like. It's too much. There is way too much Deus Ex Machina in that whole story arc that's what turned me away from it. It was just like, this. There's no way that this could possibly happen ever. Like, it's the biggest stroke of luck that anyone in the Star Wars series has ever had than Luke getting the proton bomb into the shaft.
Oh, maybe it's just the Force.
No, because neither one of them are Force positive.
Use the Force, Matt. The Force has awakened. It's guiding them.
And then that he decides to even... He finds a droid that's just tasering people in the hallway, and he's just like, you did this? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, no, okay. And then he just goes off, and then he decides to listen to the droid. Granted, I would be a little scared of a droid that was going around tasering people, and I didn't know why. So I'd probably listen to it too, because I definitely want to be tasered. That's what I have a problem with. I also didn't like the whole casino thing, because it just kind of... going there to find the guy... kind of... It seemed like a last-second thought, but they went with it. It wasn't really done like a last-second thought. They tried to, like, make it good. The segue into it was a little weird with the talking to the lady from the bar from The Force Awakens. It's like, okay. This seems a little fast, but whatever. And then them going there, and they find him, and they go to jail. There's an even better code hacker. That's the problem I had with that whole thing. Is there was too much coincidence and Deus Ex Machina to be worth any kind of
so
real...
you think it's unlikely that they would find someone who's really good at breaking into things at a casino in the jail?
Yeah. Or if
I don't. I mean, the
why
same
was he still there?
cell. He was getting hot meals every day. I don't know.
Just a homeless super hacker who can get anything he wants. He got in that ship. First off, that's another thing. We didn't even know how he did that. It wasn't his ship. Where'd he get it from? That would have been a bit more interesting to know.
He hotwired it.
He's amazing at his job, and he's just like sitting in some lonely little prison cell for how knows.
Because he's bored. I don't know. I mean,
exactly. It makes no sense as to why he's still there when they get there, or why. It's too lucky.
Maybe he was just waiting for someone to come in the cell that needed a job. Oh, this is interesting. I don't know.
They didn't even offer to pay him.
Have you ever heard of a show called Mr. Robot?
No.
So it's basically about a hacker, and I believe it. I believe that hackers can be rather eccentric and not make a whole lot of sense. I mean, honestly, when in real life, when someone makes a virus that messes up people's computers and they have no idea how many computers or who all it's affecting, I've always wondered, like, where do you get satisfaction out of that? You don't even know the damage that you're causing. You just like to go out and cause chaos, and you just like the fact that you've caused it. That doesn't make sense to me. So it kind of makes sense to me that they would find someone who's a hacker and he's eccentric. Doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to.
But the exact hacker that they need for someone who knows how to hack into those kinds of ships, they couldn't find one easily. They had to call a stranger they met to figure out how to find someone. One of the best hackers ever. They find him, and they find someone who's just as good as him. And he's not drunk. I thought at first he was drunk. No, he's just weird. He's just a weird dude. He's just chilling in a cell.
I do think that it was unnecessary for them to get someone else, because you could have just have them find the guy that they were supposed to find and have him double cross them.
Or they could have called him. I'm sure there's some way to get a hold of the guy. But that's my thought on that whole thing. Didn't think it was bad or unnecessary. They just too lucky and too forced.
I do like what they did with the best shot in the movie was easily the cruiser going at light speed and destroying. I thought it would disable or destroy the large ship. I did not think it would basically wipe out the entire fleet.
That's the coolest thing I've seen in a movie in such a long time.
Where everything goes black and white and silent.
Which is beautiful, because space has no noise. It's basically like you're sitting in space, and all of a sudden, you just see a flash of light, and just things are just destroyed.
And it was so powerful.
So beautiful. I think the coolest thing I've seen in a movie since that would probably be the Transformers movies. That's probably the most impressive visual effects I've seen it, because it's hard to have that many moving parts in something. And the first movie I think did well. Well, I think they all do it kind of well. It's just the movies in general are kind of bad. But that was just so good. Just I wish I could see the face of the person that, like, the people who did that whole scene,
right,
as they see it in the theater, and just see how many people just like look like, oh my gosh, it was the coolest thing in any Star Wars movie, and I feel completely okay saying that.
It's very pretty. I liked Yoda, although at first I thought he looked weird, but then I realized, oh, he's a puppet again.
You were not wrong, because they did a CGI of his puppet. The first few times you're looking at him, it is a CGI version of his puppet. The rest of the time, it's his actual puppet.
Really?
Yes. And it's the dumbest thing. That's another really dumb thing that I didn't like in the movie. But it didn't have anything to do with the story. It's just, if you had his puppet and you were using it, why not just use it right there? Why did you have to make a CGI version of his puppet?
Like, do you know that it was CGI?
Yes. Yeah, you can look at it.
I just thought it looked weird because they made it into a puppet. They tried to make it look like he did in Empire, but it was just a little bit off.
It's the same puppet.
It can't be the same puppet.
It is.
It can't be.
It is. It's the same puppet they used.
Puppets break down over time.
You can repair them. It is the same puppet. But the first few times you're looking at him, he's CGI.
I don't know.
And
I'd have to get like.
I think the homage for the puppet is. I thought it was nice. I thought it was kind of cool to be like, hey, here he is. And I can't say for certain which one I would prefer, either his puppet version or the better CGI version they had in the prequels. I guess the puppet one is more of a senile old man kind of look.
Yeah, exactly. I do like the fact that it was the Yoda from Dagobah who has gone crazy being a hermit himself.
Which would make sense because that was the last version of him.
Right.
They shouldn't have it to where it was younger. So, okay, I guess it makes sense more like that because Anakin is still deformed and weird when he's in his Force Ghost. He just doesn't have his helmet on. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi is the same as when he died, so it makes sense to have Yoda look like that.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, and then I do like the whole thing that they gave Luke Skywalker with him showing up and he's a Force projection and you don't know how he has a whole fleet of walkers fire on him and he's fine.
As soon as I saw him walk out in front of all those AT-ATs, my heart started pounding really hard and I kept like nudging my brother. I was like, dude, he's gonna kill them all. He's gonna do the anime thing. And they all started shooting at him. I was like, oh, he's gonna Kamehameha them. Because I wanted him to like collect all of them in like a big ball and then just like shoot them out and either like a big blast or just like machine gun fire, like all of them. Like, and I'm kind of glad they didn't. I'm kind of glad they went the route that they did, but I would have loved so much because Luke. There's a word that I would use to describe Luke that he is in the books and the lore.
Not on this.
I'm not going to say it, but he's a cool guy. He's a really cool guy, and to have seen him, I would have, if it had been done correctly, I would have loved to have seen a CGI version of Luke just decimating these AT-ATs. But I feel like the psychological fight and victory with Kylo Ren was also good.
Right.
So I like having my fantasy of Luke Skywalker just destroying everything, but what they did was also good.
And also at the very end, so the scene where Luke does become one with the Force. We'll call it that. Because that is what happens. He does the whole disappear thing. So he's like willingly going to the Force. The fact that he was looking at two suns. Okay, so does that mean did we ever get the name of the planet he was on?
The one with the Star Wars temple? Or the Star Wars temple?
Yeah, the one with the Star Wars temple. That one.
I can't remember.
I got Star Wars pajamas in my temple.
Luke Skywalker is like, I've become a businessman. These weird people are helping me create an industry.
Welcome to the new Disney World.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I love the Porgs. Just really quick, I love the Porgs. I love that they were that when you saw them close up, they were usually practical effects, that they were puppets.
Yeah. Like
the ones that were giving Chewie a hard time about eating one of them. Those were puppets. I like that.
I thought it was funny that he was conflicted with eating him as they're looking at him.
And then he has one with him.
There's a bunch of them on the Millennium Falcon. There's like 5 or 6. I didn't like them.
You didn't like the porgs?
No, for the same reason that I don't like the Minions.
Oh, goodness.
The first movie was completely fine to have them. Everything after that, hated them. Porgs were just another way to sell toys. And there was no point in having them.
No, there was, actually. The reason why they were even there in the movie was because that island was like covered in like seagulls or like some other bird. So they had to figure out a way to cover them up. So, porgs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why.
Oh.
It was easier to do with that than just CGIing them out.
It wasn't a puffin, was it?
I think it was.
I was going to say, because I know like there's a type of bird that lives on islands like that, and it was like,
yeah,
it's a puffin.
Yeah.
It's because they ate a cereal called Puffin.
What else? Oh yeah, so the scene with Luke. So yeah, I was like, so does that mean like I know he was in water? You know, it's an island surrounded by water. Is that like a part of Tatooine that no one knew about? Because it was 2 suns, and I'm not saying that, you know, of course Tatooine's the only planet that orbits 2 suns, but it was a little bit. It almost. I thought that there was like a big. That was like a big thing there. Like the whole time he's actually been where he belongs, Tatooine. It was just a water part of a desert planet.
I don't think that's what it was.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but that did confuse me at first.
I liked it. I thought
it was fun. Well, the director did say that they did make one mistake with that part, though, when he becomes one with the Force. So you see his clothing kind of flap away in the wind. What about his mechanical arm?
Oh.
Wouldn't you have heard like a clank of it falling to the ground?
What about Anakin?
That's not. Well, he died, and he didn't become one with the Force. At that, I mean, he became one. Everyone becomes one with the Force when they die in Star Wars, but he didn't disappear. He died, and then Luke brought his body and burnt it, because that's how you dispose of a Jedi's body with respect. But yeah, no. The reason why he shows up as Anakin and not burned up old, Darth Vader Anakin is that he technically, that's the one that he crossed over to the dark side. Like he was a Jedi to that point.
Okay, it's been a while since I've seen that movie,
and I don't mind the edit of making it. What's his name? What's the guy's name who played Anakin? The guy whose like career was destroyed by the role.
Are you talking about the prequel?
Yeah. Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
Hayden Christensen. Like that's why they changed it from the older Anakin to him. Let me think. Yeah, aside from that, I didn't really have issues with the movie. I really don't get all the hate that it's getting. I don't know why it's so divisive. I would have preferred Luke lived a little bit longer. If they were going to kill him off, wait till 9. Yeah, I do agree with you. I think they've written themselves into a quarter with Leia now, where they could have had an easy out for her.
They could have had her die with the ship.
Yeah, now they're making things very hard on themselves.
Yeah.
But I still stand by. I think this is definitely my favorite one so far that Disney has done. I'm genuinely interested to find out what happens in 9. So we'll see.